1015 FM, 720 AM. KDWN, the talk of Las Vegas.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. 1 full hour of wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's bring on the tag team of Andrew Fish Fain, Joe DeFalco, and your host, Mark Hoke.
Angelo, Joe DeFalco, Andrew Fish Fain, and Mark Hoke are going to fight for the blueberry donut in the box here in the KDWN
It's like
studios.
the cash in the case?
No, it's even better. It's the blueberry donut in the box. Are you ready for the fight? Who's gonna fight for the blueberry donut?
Theory is gonna come in at the last minute and get it.
Oh no, we are not letting Austin Theory. Oh, I can't.
It's not Austin Theory. It's just Theory.
No, we're allowed to say Austin Theory. He can be Austin Theory. It's okay. It's all right. He can be Austin. No, we'll just call him Austin. It's all right. He can use his name. We're all friends here.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. God, don't even get me. Well, we are going to get started.
Oh, absolutely we are.
Welcome to the Mark Hoke Show, everybody. The #1 professional wrestling show here in Las Vegas. Angelo's pumped up. Angelo, you should have watched Money in the Bank last night, so you could have experienced the disappointment and sorrow that everybody else did yesterday.
You know, I could have, but, I was out making that good old Monet, so...
Well, there was Monet in the Bank last night.
Oh, good Lord.
Here in Las Vegas. But, of course, I'm Mark Hoke. Thanks for being with us. Andrew Fish Fain.
That's me.
Who is rubbing it in my face with my Orioles jersey, who had 2 walk-offs against the Minnesota Twins the last 2 nights. Go against them. Thanks. Thanks, Fish.
Hey, anytime. It's Brian Roberts, baby.
I'm glad you lost your bets. Ha-ha. Thanks. Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling on the line. Joe, you got to come in the studio with us. I would love to see your smiling face every morning. Why don't you come in and have breakfast with us? I'll buy you breakfast.
Well, move the show to 10 a.m. and I'm there.
We're here. Come join us. It'll be fun. How are you doing, buddy?
Tired. Just waking up.
Did you get to enjoy your Money in the Bank?
I watched it. I didn't get to enjoy it, but I did watch it.
Oh, there are a lot of sad people in Las Vegas.
No, it's not. I don't think they're sad. I think they're perplexed.
Yeah, that might be a good word for it. I mean, this was really, honest to God, was an amazing week in pro wrestling. You went from Forbidden Door on Sunday. We had Blood and Guts, and a wild night there for AEW on Wednesday on Dynamite. And then we go to the WWE Premium Live event. I feel like I got to do the Vince McMahon walk when I say that, too. Here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand last night. Just, a terrific week with just a thud of an ending.
Yeah, that's the exact way to put it. It was an absolute thud of an ending. And as I said to you, what to me is the most ridiculous part about it is as soon as they announce that he's in the match, you know who's winning the match.
All right, so let's start with Money in the Bank. Let's start with Money in the Bank. We got a lot of fun, feel-good, exciting moments that led to, as you can tell, just a weird end to the night. So let's run this thing down. So kicking off Money in the Bank, the ladies got things rolling. And I have to say, it wasn't exactly the cleanest ladies' Money in the Bank match. A few rough spots.
But when there are ladders involved like that, you're always going to have rough spots.
Yeah, but this one was a little tough. I'll just say Shotzi didn't have the nicest night.
I don't know if she knows where she is right now.
The ladders were not her friend. A couple different places, and Shotzi kind of got busted open the hard way towards the end of this one. But Liv Morgan ends up winning the ladies' Money in the Bank ladder match.
Were you surprised by the decision to have Liv win it?
No, I mean, most of the women could have won that, and everybody would have been fine with it. I
thought they were going to have Rachel Rodriguez win it.
Yeah, Raquel
Rodriguez. Sorry,
Raquel was looking good. It seemed like the only person that everybody didn't want to win that match last night.
Becky Lynch.
Was Lacey Evans. She was getting booed very heavily.
I don't understand that either.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but Miss Red, White, and Blue on July 4th was getting, every time she climbed a ladder, was not getting a very nice reception. But eventually Liv Morgan does win the match, and she was very popular decision with the crowd.
And Miss Money in the Bank now.
So, well, no, Miss Money in the Bank then.
Yes. Well, I say now because I'm trying not to give anything away yet.
As the crowd's going crazy, she goes back, she does her interview, and says, "Hey, it's WrestleMania might be a nice time to.
It's just an honor to be here.
But I'm just gonna celebrate and blah 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 blah." So the next match, Bobby Lashley's taking on Theory for the U.S. title, and
I thought the match was going to end with Lashley winning via DQ.
Well, Lashley wins the title,
which to me was shocking at the time. Shocking.
So Theory is dethroned. Bianca Belair crushes Carmella, not a shock. So she retains.
And I was thinking about it. We talked about Carmella beating up Bianca afterwards. I think they did it so people would think that Liv would come down and try to cash in the case then when Bianca got beaten up by Carmella.
Well, she did nothing.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it was like at the end of a bar fight where the girl that loses is like, I get mad at you. It was just stupid.
That's, to be honest, that's Carmella's character.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Whatever. Carmella, sorry, love you, sweetie. Go away.
Just be happy with Corey Graves.
The Usos and the Street Profits match of the night. I mean, those guys, and I got to tell you, I don't know if it was just because the Street Profits, when they were the champions, were doing it during the pandemic time and there were no crowds. But this match, the psychology of the match and the way these guys went, I mean, and Montez Ford put on some muscle mass. He is looking amazing. But those four went at it last night like I haven't seen them go in a long time. Looked terrific. The Usos get the win. And
not without some controversy.
Montez had his shoulder up, so they're setting up a rematch with that, and I want to see it now. I'm actually excited to see those four go at it again. But the Usos retain. Ronda Rousey beats Natty. And then all of a sudden, of course, Ronda gets a knee injury during the match. And all of a sudden, Liv Morgan's music hits. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Isn't that what Alexa Bliss did when she won the Money in the Bank in the same night, cashed it in?
I can't remember if she pulled that stunt. But Liv comes out and cashes in the case, and Ronda actually gets her in an ankle lock. And Liv gets away, rolls Ronda up, pins her, and Liv Morgan is now the WWE's Smackdown Women's Champion.
And Ronda actually gave her moment in the spotlight.
Yep. So Liv cashes in. So that lasted a whole hour and a half. And then we have the men's match. Oh boy. So all the guys get introduced, and then Adam Pearce comes out and says, "Hey, there's nothing better than a big surprise. Let's add one more." And out comes Theory.
Now, Joe, when you're booking something, isn't it obvious when you add someone like a Theory to that match? Isn't it obvious at that point that that's who's going to win the match?
In certain situations, but honestly, I think Theory's a guy that nobody would have figured he was going to win.
Had he been in the match?
I'll be honest with you. I was half asleep at that point, and I heard the introductions, and I kind of dozed, and then I woke up, and I'm like, what is Austin Theory doing there? And then all of a sudden, he's grabbing the thing, and he wins the match, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it's like, I don't know how it makes any sense, to be honest with you. It's like, I get it. They want to put Lashley over, and they want to make these secondary titles important, and it's like, yeah, no, they don't. I like Theory a lot, but the way they present him doesn't make him special in any way. So I don't know how it's going to change anything. You're making him this cowardly heel to begin with. So, I'm a big fan of his if they actually, treated him right. But it's kind of like, I like Ricochet a lot. They made him Intercontinental Champion, and, until he lost the title, he didn't win a match unless it was I don't think he really won any matches. It's like, okay, we're going to have him lose all these non-title matches, and that's how they present those secondary champions. And, Theory winning, it's like, you heard the pop for Drew. It's like if McIntyre would have won, I think people would have really cared. It's like, does anybody think Theory's going to cash in on Brock Lesnar?
And that was our point, is where do you go from here with Theory? Because you can't take the belt off of Reigns with Theory, and you certainly can't have Theory beat Lesnar.
Yeah, this is a mess.
Maybe it's because of Cena coming back. Maybe he puts the case in the line against John Cena. John Cena wins, and then John Cena has the case.
And going through this match, actually heading into it, I looked at this, and there were quite a few people, honestly, that you could have done a lot with this had they won. Drew McIntyre, yes, he makes sense. Moss doesn't make sense. Omos doesn't make sense. And by the way, he didn't look good in this match.
No, but I did like the giant body slam through the table.
The seven guys picking him up, cool spot.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean the one that didn't go through the table where he kind of slid?
That's the
one. But cool idea. Okay, we got to get rid of the Giants, so let's all pick him up. Riddle would have made sense. Sami Zayn, that could have been a torturous, funny thing to do if he had the case. Seth Rollins torturing Roman Reigns for 6 months makes sense. Sheamus, guy who actually cashed in on Reigns before, makes sense. But Theory
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, but Theory
makes the least amount of sense.
But just, and here's what I'm worried about. I like Theory too. Great young wrestler, but I feel what could happen to this guy is this is another guy that Vince is shoving down everybody's throats. And a good young talent like him could get burned down in everybody's eyes. And the reaction to him winning just on social media as an example right now has been horribly negative. And the backlash that is going to go against this guy could be disastrous to his career. You think about what happened to Roman Reigns and what happened to John Cena. And, Fishy brought this up even though he's a heel, but he's going to get a lot of go-away heat. We don't want this guy. And, to do that to a young guy, I think could really, really hurt him a lot.
What's going to make or break it, ridiculously or not, is going to be what happens this coming Monday, tomorrow night on Raw, how they handle it, because they have to handle it perfectly out of the gate.
Yeah, I
think Theory, the relationship with Theory is more like when Drew McIntyre got pushed down everybody's throat as the chosen one, and not really those other guys.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. And look what happened to Drew.
Well, that's what I said, is because when he pushed Roman Reigns, when he pushed John Cena, they were both being pushed as faces, and people could say, we don't believe this guy, we don't want this guy as a face. When it's a heel, it's a lot easier because but you're right, it could be go-away heat, but could also be they're booing him because he's a heel. And he does a great job of being a heel. The problem is, it's unbelievable that he could beat Reigns or Lesnar.
Yeah, you still have to build the story, no matter what side it's on. You still have to build that story. It still has to be believable. And when you think about the story, this still has to be a guy that you've got to buy could be the world heavyweight champion. And when you put these guys like Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and John Cena is now going to be involved in this picture too.
We think
you've got to see this guy at that level, and you don't.
Because the other storyline of the way it goes is you have Reigns beat Lesnar at SummerSlam, and then Reigns and McIntyre face off at the Clash at the Castle. McIntyre beats Reigns at the Clash at the Castle, and then Theory cashes in on McIntyre.
I mean, do you see what we're doing right now? We're trying to rationalize this somehow.
Well, they have to because
we can't. We can't.
That's the only way you can do it is have McIntyre lose to Theory at the Clash at the Castle.
It's a mess. So, and by the way, this is the Mark Hoke Show on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. Joe DeFalco on the line with us. Andrew Fishfane looking amazingly. No, don't do that. Wow, he just pointed the gun and did the wink. Don't ever do that again. You can do that to Angelo.
I'm like Massey or Mansoor.
Angelo kill his mic. That's a 2-minute penalty. No, and I'm Mark Hoke. Thanks for being with us on the number one pro wrestling
Mark Hoke.
Show. Oh, God. No.
You've heard of Max Dupree's Maximum Models now.
Please, the love of God, don't. No. No, but like I said, I just think that this is too soon for Theory. It's
not even about too soon. It's that there's no place to go with it.
No. I don't see this. I don't see this going well.
He can lose. It isn't like he has to cash in and win.
That is true.
Yeah, but if you do that, then there was no point in giving him the case to begin with.
Well, they think maybe they're going to give him the rub a little bit. Maybe, again, a lot of people, you talk about Cena, a lot of people thought that John Cena, when he was doing his rapping gimmick in the beginning, was a guy that was amusing, but he was not considered a guy that we're going to look at as the heavyweight champion, so maybe Vince feels, the same similarities with the Theory. I could see reasoning behind why that Vince is enamored with him. I think Theory's awesome, but I don't think he's presented that way, and all they got to do is kind of tweak the way they present him to being taken more serious. Now, whether they will or not, it's WWE. Probably not.
Do you think the original plan was for Cody Rhodes to win the Money in the Bank?
Probably.
That's what everybody says, but, yeah. And again, you want to talk about see it coming. Well, if Cody Rhodes was in there, we would have seen it coming that he was going to win. Not all the time seeing it coming is, would people feel differently if Theory actually qualified to be in the Money in the Bank and then won? Would they be less irritated by it?
I would be. If he had qualified and was in the match, I wouldn't have expected him to win. When he was announced as the 8th and surprise entrance, I knew at that point he was going to win.
See,
I wasn't sitting there. Like I said, I was half asleep when they announced him. I just don't think the way they're presenting Austin Theory, I would think, okay, he's got put in this match because of Vince McMahon, but he's still not winning. You know what I mean? And then that's my opinion on it. Now you think, hey, I see it happen a lot. I think Theory's put in this match and he's going to win. Like, to me, he's still the 4th or 5th choice, that you would think it would be in reality, it's Drew, it's Seth Rollins and Riddle. And I don't think Riddle's winning. I just think a lot of people would have liked to see Riddle win. So in reality, it's Seth or Drew that you can see as the guy that can win Money in the Bank and go on and become the heavyweight champion. Now, that's the way I perceive it, but everybody's going to perceive it different. And, they're geared toward the fans who probably have no idea what they're thinking. They're just like, oh, okay, this is great.
And I was just going to ask you, Joe, you narrowed it down to 2 there. If you were the guy booking this, and of course Joe runs Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, if you were picking somebody to do that, because, I think the plan probably was to go to Cody, but if you were with Cody out, who would you have picked to have taken that spot?
I would have picked Drew McIntyre because he was the guy most realistic, and if you wanted to have him as the guy to beat Roman Reigns. Now, we had a dilemma. We just had our own version of the Money in the Bank cash in the case at the last show, and we had 7 people in it, and you kind of wrote off a couple of young guys, giving them their first opportunity. But for me, I prefer, in the perfect situation, to have the heel be the guy who has that case. Because if the heel has the case, heels do bad things. So even though you have the case, they're not really doing a bad thing by taking advantage of a situation. But a heel is more geared to do that. With an injury, you come in and you steal the win, because that's what heels do. They steal the win. A guy like Drew McIntyre or Riddle, they're supposed to be stand-up guys. So they're the ones who are going to be like, hey, next week on Raw, I'm cashing in the case. And that's how I perceive it as, that it's kind of a cheap way for a babyface to win. So when we decided who we were going to put over, we put over a marginal mid-card guy that really hasn't had a run. He's part of a group, but in our situation, you could cash in for, any title. So with his group, you look at him and you say, well, he can go after the tag titles. He can go after the No Limit title. Odds are he's not going after the heavyweight title. While in WWE, you win that match and you're supposed to go after a main title. So it makes it even more difficult. Who cares if Omos has it? And you brought up Sheamus, and I think Sheamus, is a guy capable, but again, it's the way he's presented. And I think he's not presented as a top-tier guy at this point.
I think if the belts were split and there was back to the Universal and the Heavyweight Championship, then I could see Theory winning it and then taking out whoever it is that he's going to take out. But now you have no foil for him. He's never had any interaction with Roman Reigns whatsoever. I would have had Seth Rollins win, because you could have gone so many different ways with Seth Rollins winning the case.
And I think that's who I would have picked too at this point. The whole history, because
that would rebuild him immediately after going 0-17 against Cody Rhodes.
And you have the history. Just that recent match that they had with Rollins and Reigns, you have that situation where Reigns didn't beat him. It was that DQ match, and all that history you have between the two of them. Plus, let's just say Lesnar beats him coming up here at SummerSlam. You've got all that history between
Rollins and Lesnar.
Between Rollins and Lesnar, and plus, could you imagine Rollins with the character he has right now, just running around for 5 months? Hi, guys.
Or, not even that. What about coming into SummerSlam and doing what he did at WrestleMania, cashing in and making it a triple threat between? All of a sudden, it's history repeating himself.
I wouldn't do the same trick twice, but just having him torturing those guys,
absolutely,
for months would be exciting and
because
fun.
People still like Seth freaking Rollins, even though he's a heel.
Yeah.
So you could absolutely have him do that with the case.
I think
then he loses and then he holds on to the case and loses it to Cody Rhodes again when he comes back.
Or he could do that too.
I mean, I think Riddle.
Or you guys are totally missing the boat. Maybe Austin Theory's going to cash in on Bobby Lashley, and you're all wrong.
They could do that too.
that would that would be very typical, but it would just be ridiculous.
Yeah, but maybe
he wants that U.S. title back, or everybody has dreams of what they want.
That's what dreams are made of.
Oh, good Lord! See, my problem is I don't know how much Cena is going to be involved.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out soon enough. All right, well, we are going to be headed to a commercial break here, and when we come back, hey, we're going to talk a little AEW because, hey, we can't forget.
All right, I'm going home then.
There was some pretty crazy stuff that went on at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view too, and maybe we'll talk a little John Cena because, of course, he had his 20th
I
anniversary.
also heard there's some more unhappiness, and the FSW former tag team champion is going to be debuting next Friday.
Oh, well, hey, we can talk about that as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, maybe Joe send me a text and let me know what's up with that so we can hit that hard as well. So stick around for more here on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDWN, 101.5 FM 720M. Mark Hoke, Joe DeFalco, Andrew Fain. Stick around for more. The best pro wrestling news and entertainment you're going to get here in Las Vegas. We'll be right back. Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.
1015 FM, 720 AM, KDWN, the talk of Las Vegas.
This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
Yeah. Hi, that's me.
Mark Hoke, hey.
Stop it. I am not a maximum model. I am dead sexy. I was.
Dead sexy
anyway.
Mark Hoke, hey.
Stop it. I don't know what to do with you. You and your slightly coral hair.
It's blue. Dodger blue.
I'm gonna put you in Zoolander. That's what we're gonna do. Gonna have a gasoline fight with your orange mocha frappuccinos. I can't even say mocha frappuccino. What's going on? Angelo, help. Say something. Help.
Help, I guess.
This show is off the rail. It is unbelievable. The Mark Hoke Show, #1 pro wrestling show here in Las Vegas. I'm Mark Hoke, along with Andrew Fishbein, Joe DeFalco from Future Stars of Wrestling. Joe, what do you have going on? I hear some of your guys are going to be getting busy on AEW. What's going on?
Well, they did a lot of work during when AEW was in town. We probably had 10 to 15 of our guys got to perform on the show. But, besides Brian Cage, we got a big signing with our guy Toa Leona. They brought him in as part of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, wrestled at the Ring of Honor show they did, and now the Gates of Agony, as they're called. I guess they're debuting on AEW Friday night, and I saw that they were going to be wrestling Jonathan Gresham and a partner, so that's a big match for those guys.
That's awesome, and those
That
guys
is fantastic.
And those guys are pretty talented. I did get to see them a couple of times on Joe's shows, and they are fantastic. So, well, good for them, man. And that's what Future Stars of Wrestling does. You get to see some terrific people working their way up, and they end up wrestling on the big time, man. So congratulations, Joe.
Yeah, Toa's a guy. He got trained at Rikishi's School of Hard Knocks, which the connection was, there was a GCW show at our venue, and when I first got introduced to Toa, he basically got sent to me by Rikishi's son, who is now Solo Sikoa. And he said, you need to go see Joe. And he was a guy who was a big dude, looked like a monster, relatively inexperienced. And you could tell early on, like with Solo or Sefa, since that's how I know him, that this guy had a lot of potential. And, it was kind of crazy that as inexperienced as he was, and we knew he had, definite potential, it kind of took us by surprise that they reached out and, they used him, which is great, but that they actually signed him to a contract and now are putting him in a good situation. So he's a great dude, humble, and, you see certain guys when you're coming through and a guy like Cross and Hammerstone and Solo Sikoa, like Chris Bay, like you knew there's something special about him. And it was the same thing with Toa. It just turned out that he ended up, moving up the ranks way quicker than even we expected.
Do you get a sense of pride when former students of yours or former people who started at FSW make it to the quote-unquote big time at AEW or WWE?
Absolutely. And it's not only the guys that you sign. It's like, in 2009, you get emails from people all over. You're a new company, whatever. And when you get one from a guy like Brian Cage, who, had a taste of developmental in 2009, was looking for some work, heard good things about him, brought him in. And at the time, he had a tag partner, and they were working, up and down California. His name was Sean Ricker. And the first time we saw him, like, holy crap, this guy's awesome. He's going to make it to the next level. And, now he runs the top male modeling agency in WWE.
Hey, good work if you can get it. It's the way it goes.
Less bumps he's taking these days, Max Dupree.
Yes, Mark Hoke.
Stop it. Cannot do that. Well, I guess it's better than Hokey Pokey, so I'll survive. Well, of course, on last Sunday, we had the AEW Forbidden Door pay-per-view, the joint promotion between New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Elite Wrestling. And I don't want to go through the whole card. There were just a ton of matches on there. But there were some significant developments that took place. Of course, Jon Moxley won the AEW Interim World Championship against Hiroshi Tanahashi. One thing that surprised me about this match was, man, I'll tell you what, Tanahashi had a lot of crowd support in this. And a lot of people knew who Tanahashi was. And really, when I watched this card, the Japanese wrestlers had a lot of support on this thing. It was a pretty knowledgeable crowd. And I almost wonder if you're going to see more of the Japanese wrestlers showing up on AEW. They kind of dipped the toe a little bit when you saw Suzuki and Ishii popping up here and there. But do you guys think we're going to see more of the Japanese wrestlers showing up on AEW? And is there any chance maybe WWE is going to take a shot on this after the success of this pay-per-view?
I don't believe they will, but I think the AEW fan base knows who they are. I think most people who were watching at home probably had no idea who they were, but those AEW fans, they follow so much wrestling, and that's why New Japan could go out and draw really well, but their percentage of I heard early on that the buy rates weren't very good because people weren't that excited about it because the majority of fans really aren't up on the New Japan stuff, but AEW fans are, so they're going to have a better draw on the house. And plus, who is WWE going to use? New Japan's got an agreement with AEW. So what guys can WWE use if New Japan has the deal right now?
Well, it was interesting you mentioned about those buy rates because it was, I think, and I'm trying to find that information here real quick, but they had, I believe there were 39% of people that bought this pay-per-view hadn't bought Double or Nothing. So there were a lot of new people that bought this pay-per-view, which I thought was pretty interesting that, nearly 40% of people that hadn't watched Double or Nothing watched this one. I mean, that's kind of an intriguing number to see that you're bringing in a different fan base on this pay-per-view.
It is, but what's the number?
It was it was 120. I think it was 127,000 people bought the pay-per-view.
Well, that's actually, I think, would be considered pretty solid. But again, if 40% bought it, that means those were all the New Japan fans that weren't fans of AEW, and they were excited because Okada was on the show and things like that. Because you got to remember, New Japan got that influx a few years back with Ring of Honor, and it was a big deal when Okada and Suzuki and all those guys, finally came to the United States. It wasn't a huge fan base, but, that was part of, when Omega and all those guys, those were New Japan guys that came over. And then later on, you got guys like Moxley and Chris Jericho wrestling there. So, that to me is a pretty good number, 120,000. That's about 110,000 more than Impact.
Yeah. Wow. Poor Impact.
They went without doing anything. They went from being, almost a number 2 promotion to being a distant third, if that.
Yeah. Sorry to see that.
Might be 4th.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
might be 5th. I think they're behind GCW.
Yeah.
And FSW.
That too.
That is, wow, you guys are something else. Well, and we had the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match in there, which was, and really up and down the card, it was terrific wrestling all the way. Jay White, Hangman Adam Page, Okada, and Adam Cole, which unfortunately was a terrific match until they had a really abrupt ending because Adam Cole
got injured,
collapsed.
And what is the update on Adam Cole?
He is still out. He was going in there apparently with a shoulder injury, but got a really bad concussion. And if you didn't see the match, White did a switchblade to Okada and then just jumped on Cole, who had fallen over in the corner, and covered Cole, got the 1-2-3, and it was over. So Adam Cole goes on the shelf with all of these other guys in AEW because, of course, we've got Punk out. We've got Bryan Danielson out. We have
Jeff Hardy out for you do
self-inflicted.
It's
wound
still,
on
but he's
that
out.
one. Both the guys in Red Dragon are out. I mean, the AEW roster. Thank God they've got a lot of guys on it because
decimated.
They are decimated at the moment. I mean, this is
and maybe I'm going to say, that's why WWE a lot of times doesn't want to build those guys up because they're smaller. And look at them; they only run 1 or 2 times a week. Imagine running that schedule in WWE of 5-6 days a week. They always talk about certain guys, and it's like WWE will say, Adam Cole, why isn't he getting on the main roster? Why isn't he a big deal there? And it's like, because they have a hard time really wanting to push too many guys that are 5'6", that aren't, more than 160 pounds. And there's a lot of wear and tear, especially on the style of wrestling that those guys present.
Well, and that was something that I was going to ask you, Joe, is the style of wrestling that AEW does, is it too much for these guys to take? And you look at what happened with Jeff Hardy, you kind of wonder, the match that he had with Darby Allin, where they were just doing a first round match in that Owen Hart tournament, and they decided to make it a no holds barred, crazy ladder match, and they didn't have to do that. And all of a sudden, Hardy gets hurt, and within a week, they had the match with the Young Bucks, and Hardy, really didn't perform well because he was all busted up, and then he gets a DUI, and you wonder if that match contributed to that because he was in pain and he goes and gets drunk, and you kind of feel like, was he doing that to drown out the pain?
Yeah, one thing leads to another.
Led to another. Is the style of some of the things that they're doing, and they're too much for some of these guys to take, and do they need to back off a little bit?
Well, I think the main issue is, as I said, with WWE, whether you like it or don't like it, they try to tone down, I guess you can say, what people do inside the ring. And, the pure wrestling fan wants to see the coolest stuff possible. Well, for Tony Khan, he wants his company to be bigger than WWE, so he has to go out of the box. And how is that? Well, let's get our most athletic people and let them do cool, crazy stuff. That way people pay attention and notice it. Now, if they ran 5 or 6 days a week, it would probably implode. But when you're only doing 1 or 2 tapings a week and 1 pay-per-view every 4 months, there is a lot of time. And maybe that's the rhyme or reason of why that roster is so big, because they take into consideration how many guys are going to be on the shelf that you say, yeah, well, look at this. And as you said, Red Dragon, the Bucks have been up and down recently, and all these other guys get hurt where, they have 30 guys that you could put in the main event spot. But at most times, only 20 of them are available because there's something going on. So, unless they go 6 days a week, I think they'll be fine. They just have to monitor what's going on. And, you talk about WWE giving people time off. Well, this is a forced way, I guess, of getting time off. That if you're banged up, hey, don't worry about it. You're still going to get paid. And, we have somebody else who could get in that spot, but maybe they're not afraid of losing the spot. Where a lot of times if people are injured, they're going to work through it, especially in the WWE, because if you're in a decent position, you don't want to lose that position to somebody else.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, but my problem with the deep roster is that they'll have now events and storylines that you'll get so invested in, but then somebody will come back and they'll get thrust into the storyline because they're that big name, and they have to be thrust in because they are the name, whether it's Bryan Danielson or Adam Cole or whomever, or Kenny Omega when he comes back, and then all that, the months of work that you've had building up to whatever the build is goes by the wayside because now Kenny Omega is back.
Well, yeah, and that's why maybe you're hearing inklings that Santana wants to leave AEW.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's another name that
there was a guy, they came in as one of the most hot, they were probably the hottest tag team, even over, Pentagon and Phoenix at the time, LAX. And they've come in, and in reality, they've been nothing but stooges for Chris Jericho the entire time. And a guy like Santana, who's 26, 27 years old, whatever, if he's 30 years old, he went there looking for big things, and they probably made big money. But it's similar to Brian Cage. You're making big money, but you want to wrestle, and a lot of these guys aren't getting that opportunity because, as you said, now they sign Claudio, and now they sign Daniel Bryan, and now they sign, look at Miro. Everybody thought he was going to win. He doesn't win. Are we even going to see him again for the next 6 months?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. We'll see where all that turns out. And speaking of, you mentioned Claudio, he showed up of course, Bryan Danielson was on the shelf and was supposed to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr., who made his AEW debut at Forbidden Door. But we got a pretty good substitute as Claudio Castignoli, of course, the former Cesaro, took his place and got the win over Zack Sabre Jr., who may be the best technical wrestler in the world. And, of course, then Claudio wrestled in that blood and guts match on Wednesday night. Your reaction to Claudio Castignoli now in AEW and what he's going to be doing, that's a pretty exciting signing, I think, for AEW guys. What do you think?
I was surprised he won, to be honest with you. I thought, they were going to try to put some of the bigger name New Japan guys that maybe weren't champions go over, and they really didn't. So I don't know if I see a really long-term relationship, because it became more of New Japan putting over the AEW guys like that. You brought in, and again, hey, the replacement's coming in. But, if you're going to showcase, and Zack Sabre hasn't really had a lot of opportunities in the United States, you would think this would have been the time to have a big high-profile match against Cesaro and beat him. But they didn't go that route. So it's interesting to me looking at it in the political sense of the two companies.
Yeah, that was kind of a tough spot. I mean, Ospreay went over on Orange Cassidy, which wasn't a surprise. Even that was a really good match, but I think that one was kind of a trade-off to have Sabre lose, but Ospreay win. But you couldn't have Castignoli take a loss there right off the bat. You maybe could have done a count out or a double D, something along those lines. But
but they don't want to do that in those type of shows. If they do, they want to do it as little as possible. But, Orange Cassidy is a low mid-card guy. Him losing, if he would have won, I would have been, stunned, because it was also, I believe, a title match. But, you can go either way with that. But I just thought, New Japan's presenting Zack Sabre Jr., this is his first really big high-profile match in the United States. I would have thought that they would have wanted him. And again, I don't think Cesaro losing does anything, as we've seen. Seth Rollins lost 3 times in a row, and people expected him to probably win the Money in the Bank and then cash in against a guy like Reigns. So again, it's how you're presented. So.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Of course, this is the Mark Hoke Show here on KDWN 101.5 FM, 720 AM. #1 pro wrestling show here in Las Vegas. And We're talking a little Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And, by the way, I got to take a little...
Fish's favorite pay-per-view of the year.
It was a good one. I tried to get you to go, Fish.
I know.
Yeah, you should have. It was pretty fun.
I do want to say, because I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about it, the one thing that happened this week that I thought was very interesting was the John Cena 20-year Raw special. And it's nothing about that, but the fact that they had Big Show, Bryan Danielson, and Chris Jericho all doing videos for the WWE on that show, I thought was very interesting, because that's not a very Vince McMahon-like move.
Yeah, well, wasn't like Big Show had anything else going on in his life.
Well, but I think that they needed to do that. I mean, the history of John Cena, is just so entwined with those three guys. You couldn't ignore it. And
yeah, but if it was back in the WCW days, there is no way in hell that Vince McMahon would have acknowledged guys that are now on the enemy side.
Is that a sign of almost disrespect to AEW?
No, I think times have changed, and I legitimately don't believe that Vince McMahon thinks that AEW is a threat.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He's got a great relationship supposedly with the Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan. So, you know what? It's similar to like when I believe they let Christian, when he was back in WWE, get inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame, or The Rock doing something for Ken Shamrock. When you've done as much as they have, and I'm pretty sure Chris Jericho called Vince McMahon himself, to say, hey, I'd love to be a part of this, blah, blah, blah. And Vince probably said absolutely, because there's certain people that he would do that for. Now, would he do it for somebody who he had an issue with? So Miro had a big deal with John Cena for a while when he got over, but maybe that relationship isn't something where Vince McMahon wants to allow that to happen on his TV.
Fair enough. I just thought it was very interesting because it was a very un-Vince McMahon-like thing to do, and I thought it was a classy move for those guys to do that for John Cena.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, I was surprised, but I get it on certain people, and then I'm pretty sure Vince might have been approached by three other guys, and he was like, hell no, that ain't happening.
Well, and I did want to ask you guys about this, and I mentioned this last night when I did a show. The legacy of John Cena, it's funny because when everybody talks about their Mount Rushmore, almost nobody says John Cena's name. But does he belong there? Is John Cena one of the top 4 or 5 wrestlers of all time? Should he really?
Hogan, Austin, Rock already is the 3.
I mean, why does John Cena not get that kind of respect?
Because Austin, Rock, Hogan, Flair, they changed, the wrestling business. Cena came in at a time, and he may have carried the company. It's like Roman Reigns. They can call him the greatest champion of all time or whatever, but Hulk Hogan carried the company for years. Austin and The Rock, when they were trailing WCW, those were the two guys that, for the forefront, made Vince McMahon tons of money. Not saying John Cena didn't, but John Cena was kind of thrust into a role when they had Mankind and Triple H and Austin and The Rock. He didn't have to single-handedly carry a company.
But didn't John Cena make wrestling kind of more likable, if you know what I mean? Cena is the kind of person that the Make-A-Wish stuff, and
more than anybody in history, over 600 Make-A-Wishes.
It just, I don't know. There was just something that he outreached more than anybody I think ever did in terms of just being that kind of person that people wanted to be around, as opposed to just being a celebrity.
Maybe he should be in the Mount Rushmore of people, but that doesn't mean he should be, go ask the guy who was with Mickey James, what a great guy John Cena was.
Fair enough. All right, well, we got to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for being with us. Hey, follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, Facebook, The Mark Hoke Show, markhokeshow.com, and get those podcasts, markhokeshow.podbean.com, and all your favorite podcast outlets. For Andrew Fish, Fain, Joe DeFalco, I'm Mark Hoke. Thanks for being with us. We certainly do appreciate it. We'll see you next time on The Mark Hoke Show on KDWN, 101.5 FM, 720 AM. Have a great 4th of July, Las Vegas. We'll see you next time.
Happy birthday, America.
Acknowledge us.
Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.